Hi, I'm Will Bruin, and I was just recognized as a Seattle Sounders legend. Now I get to do voice reads for the Sounder at Heart podcast network.
Here we go. Come on! Hey, O'Shan! Let's go!
The Seattle Sounders have done it! MLS Cup winners! The Sounders rule the region! Seattle Sounders is campeón! All creatures great and small.
Rothrock going to collect it. He does just about. Runs into the advertising awning. Low to our left. Ball goes in. Oh, what a cross! And what a goal!
Where's my copy?
I got a bunch of them in the car. I'll get you some.
You're handing them out for free already.
How many
cost on them?
$50.
I'll Venmo you.
This episode of Nos Arietes is sponsored by Full Pull Wines, a Seattle-based wine retailer and proud sponsor of Nos Arietes since 2011. Full Pull was founded in 2009, is based in Seattle, and is owned and operated by longtime Sounders supporters. They offer the best boutique wines of the world to members of their mailing list, with special focus on their home, the Pacific Northwest.
Welcome back to Nos Arietes, hosted by me, Noah Riffe of Lobbing Scorchers. That's right. Jeremiah O'Shan is out living his best life. And he called me and he said, Noah, you are the person that I trust the most to handle Niko Moreno. That's right. It is what we learned this week here with Niko Moreno. Niko, how are you? You just got back from training. We have a ton of stuff to talk about. We have a Seattle Sounders heartbreaking win against Tigres. We are going to preview the upcoming match against St. Louis City. We have some drama with the Mexican National Team Federation in the Sounders. There's beef going on. Not to mention, we have some injury updates, as well as talking about Lumen Field, the grass, how that's holding up after 2 rainy matches. It's a good one here today. Niko, what's going on, man?
Hey, what's going on, Noah? I've been excited to once again share the court, share the field with the one and only, the Rifter, my man Noah. I'm excited to get on here and, discuss a game that we'll get into the particulars, but that, I was encouraged by and just the style of play and other things, but that I also want to be very clear that the objective wasn't reached. I did get to be at training today, see the feel of the team, and I'll share some of that with you and the fans. So yeah, man, lots to talk about. Quick turnaround as well. We got St. Louis coming up. So yeah, it's going to be exciting and different, of course, because we got the man Noah, what we learned this week. So man, I'm excited. I'm ready to go. My voice is a little raspy because I was doing some things at practice that I typically don't do, but just some extra work that I had to do there with some things, and my voice a little raspy, but still here, baby, still representing, of course.
This is why we call him the Sounders Insider, because he's inside and outside. He's yelling, he's talking, he's podding, he's doing it all. Let's start off with this Tigres game. In the first league game, real league game, at Lumen since February 22nd, the Seattle Sounders tallied a heartbreaking win, 3-1 against Tigres, tying the series on aggregate, but losing on the away goal tiebreaker. It was an Albert Rusnak brace that impressed. Danny Musovski played the super sub. Well, Don had 2 assists. Jordan Morris even had an assist as well. But the theme of the night was hardly the scoreline. Instead, it was the referee's left wrist. It was. Seattle felt hard done by the lack of extra time being given after Tigres employed the classic CONCACAF tricks. And the Sounders were watching the clock tick down, very frustrated. You could see Brian Schmetzer frustrated. You could hear in the post-game press conference that you recorded and posted with Daniel Musovski. He said, I don't understand how there was only 6 minutes when the goalkeeper was down for 5 of those. It was a flashback from the Mexico leg as well. A set piece goal from Joaquim ended the Sounders' hunt for Concacaf Champions Cup this season. That's it. An exit. Didn't get to the finish line there. But what does this match say to you, Niko?
Look, first of all, Danny Musowski was cooking. I mean,
he was cooking.
I upped him 3 or 4 notches on my book. I mean, he's on the come up when it comes to respect on my end, because he went after the refereeing, talked about the lack of extra time, which, look, if we're not going to allow fans to be disgusted and upset about the dark tactics and guys rolling around in the ground for 20 minutes, then we need to make sure that the mechanism which is in place to counter a lot of that, which is the extra time, we need to make sure that that's at its best. Otherwise, both need to be criticized, because one thing is, yes, colmillo and doing your thing and trying to, slow down the game. But that mechanism needs to be better at just assessing the extra time. I mean, 6 minutes? 6 minutes, really? One foul was 6 minutes, and there were multiple of those. There were fouls after you assessed the 6 minute mark, and you're obligated as a referee to add a couple more minutes when that happens. I mean, it's not that simple. You don't just say 6, and then after that, you just let it go. And as soon as it's that 6 minute mark, you cut it off. That's not how it works. So frustrating, but I did like that everyone, Jordan, Christian, even Danny Musowski, said it's not an excuse, right? I mean, we can't be mad about not doing it in 90 minutes and then be upset about an extra 6 or an extra 10 or whatever. So I thought that was good. I like self-reflection. I like self-criticism. So what did I get out of this game? It's a little bit of mixed feelings. On one end, is that you kind of lost the series in the first leg, because if some of what you saw at El Volcan and what you saw to this team, maybe 75% of the time in the second leg, is that they had the tools to win this game, is that they had the tools to really put this Tigres team under pressure. And I don't want to be overly critical, because it's very easy for me to sit here and talk about how easy it would have been to be more aggressive at Tigres and Monterrey, at El Volcan. But that is kind of what it felt like. I mean, it does feel like maybe there were some missteps. And I love that Brian was very self-reflective, and he took accountability for the fact that he did not start Ferreira. He said it didn't work out. And maybe there could have been more done to get that away goal, which is what ultimately cost you this game. But the encouraging component of this whole thing is that you have a very good team that offensively, maybe they have not gotten the goals that they want, but boy, can they create some chances. And there were plenty of them. I thought Albert Rusnak needed this sort of game. He needed the validation that he's still a very good player. I hear a lot of criticism on Albert, and I understand some of it. And I think the DP tag is what's weighing him down and what everybody kind of really focuses on. But man, he's a very good player when he has the right pieces around him. And in this game, it wasn't just the 2 goals or El Golazo that he had to equalize the series. It was he was putting balls in a dime. I mean, he was out there like Tom Brady or Peyton Manning, just dishing it, baby, just into the pocket, into space, set up Kalani, set up Jordan Morris. I mean, he was just on one. And I feel like he needed a game like this one. So overall, I do think that there's positives to come out of this. Give this team believe that if they play their game and they don't overthink it and they just focus on their principles and their concepts, they can beat about every team they can. And I do get that Tigres is not the Tigres of old, but this is still a very talented team. And I thought Seattle was the better team in this specific game for the majority of it. And although there are no such thing as moral victories in the world of sports, and you still eliminated, I do feel like it is encouraging for this team to hold on to those positives and put them into St. Louis and put them into the rest of 2026.
I feel like there are moral victories here and a couple of things I want to ask you about. For me, it felt like the Sounders needed a series like this to challenge them, especially early on. We've looked at this club so many times and seen losses like this or even wins like this in a challenging environment, a comeback moment, something that really brings the club back together. I think very specifically, Albert Rusnak, this is a game that could send him to another level, or more likely back to the level that he's been at consistently for the last few years. I think I have even been critical of him over the last few weeks. And it's pretty crazy to say that when we know his track record and he has had maybe a slow start to the season. And you're comparing him with Jesus Ferreira, but you look at them both on the field and they look incredible in this match. You see Jordan Morris tallying an assist. You see him looking dangerous. Maybe he's not exactly there yet, but this is a game where you saw him turn on what we like to call the angry Jordan mode. He was out there. Everyone got behind the idea that they could win this game. And I think that's something that Brian is really good at, getting his team to believe. But this is one of those games that ties your group together. This is one of those games that helps propel you forward in the season, win or loss. So I want to know, looking forward, looking past this game even, do you see specific things that this team can take with them?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, you talked about Jordan Morris, who, if there is something that I always look at Jordan for, is the mental component and having that goldfish mentality. Because it's hard to do. It's easy to say, hey, you know what, you mess up, you have a ball, an opportunity, a breakaway moment that you're supposed to put away, or that you're supposed to make a better option on, and just forget about it. It's easy to say, but it's hard to do. And Jordan Morris did it in this game. He took him a little bit because that first half, I think, was hindered by that very first opportunity he had, in which he could have done better at, could have made a better pass, could have taken a shot. He doesn't do either. He kind of gets dispossessed. And so I think it did weigh on him on the first half. But once, and this is credit to the substitution by Brian Smetzer of bringing Moose on, he had somebody else up there who took a little bit of pressure off him. He was able to play wider, and he had a good game overall. I mean, he creates the assist. He creates a lot of opportunities. It's almost as if some of that pressure of being the lone nine and some of the opportunities he had just kind of went away, and he was able to just play his game, trust his instinct, trust his speed, be able to get behind the defenses. And I thought he had a decent game. So the takeaways for this is, you do have guys in this roster that, in my opinion, are built to come from the bench. I think Danny's one of those guys that, because he's a poacher, he could come in at any time and perform. Guys like Paul Rothrock, who we'll talk about in a little bit. And you have a Jordan Morris that you got to try to figure out if he can hold everything that comes with being the lone nine. And then maybe you start to decipher if maybe you have to play him with two forwards or you play him in the wing. So I think that there are some things that you take out of this. I think Christian Roldan had a phenomenal game, probably his best game this season. And I feel like he needed that because he was starting to create a little concern with some of the turnovers, easy giveaways, something that is uncharacteristic of Christian Roldan. So a game like this, I think, is going to really catapult him to create our second conclusion from this game, which is Snyder Burnell and Christian Roldan. It just works. And
it works.
And it really is probably your best option there. And I say that almost with a little bit of not mixed feelings, but it is difficult because I do like Hassani Dotson. I like him. I've actually got to know him a little bit more, talk to him. And I think he has a different skill set, which is great to have in a team, right? You need different profile players for specific positions. But right now, for this system, it does feel like after this game, you can make the conclusion that Christian Roldan and Snyder Burnell is your number one duo there at the midfield position.
It did feel to me like Snyder in this CONCACAF Champions Cup run did establish himself so much to be that starter, just in the way that he played, the way he was able to take on all of these opponents so fearlessly. And honestly, there were moments where he was embarrassing some of the best players, not only in MLS, but in Liga MX. It's insane how a guy has relatively unknown last season. We knew about him, but he wasn't stepping up as much as, how many minutes did he have last season? Under 200, something like that. And coming in now, starting, looking like the number one, that's very, very, very impressive. And I think too, what we saw when Hassani did come in this match, he played a lot more of that defensive role, a lot more of that distributor role, less of that moving forward role. So he is such a utility when you need that out of that double pivot instead of more of the going forward tactic. So I liked that look. I agree with you. I think there's a lot to be gauged from Jordan's play, Albert's play, Christian's play. But the question that I have we solved who the number 9 is? Did Musovski cement himself as that player? Or are we still just going to be cycling between Jordan, Osaze, and Musovski? Because I don't know if that question was answered, but how are you feeling about it?
Yeah, no, I don't know if it's been answered, because I'm going to pass it on to Brian Smetzer, who after training today basically said Jordan looked really good at the 9, but Musovski came in and showed you that he did have double-digit goals last season and that he's still scoring goals. So it sounds like that's probably his most difficult choice moving forward. So I definitely don't think that is all said and dusted and ready to go. I would even say that, there's opportunity for a 3-5-2 look. I mean, I don't know. I think that right now, Danny Musovski deserves, at the very least, making you scratch your head a bit. And nothing against Osase, because Brian also mentioned that, look, Osase, he got his chance. He just wasn't able to necessarily do a lot with it. And I'm just paraphrasing here. But he just basically said that they both got their chance. And, Danny Musovski is the one that right now is pushing for that starting job. So when I look at this lineup, I do feel like there are moments where you can have 2 9s, but with and I say 2 9s just by the formation. I mean, you could obviously put Jordan out wide in the same 4-2-3-1 formation that you do have. But it does create even more problems, right? Because who do you take out? Is it Rusnak? Is it Jesus Ferreira? Is it Paul Rothrock? What do I do with Paul Arriola, who I'm trying to incorporate quite often? He's usually your first sub off the bench. So it does create a lot of other components. So I don't think that the question has been answered. I think that right now, specifically, Danny Musovski is making a very good case for himself. And it's going to be about Jordan trying to beat him for that spot, that role. I can tell you right now that by listening to what Brian said in the post-training scrum, Danny's starting. Musovski's starting on the weekend. I mean, there's no doubt about that. So if Moose gets in there and gives you a brace, or he has a really good game, he takes the driver's seat on this topic, on this discourse. So I don't think it's settled, but I do think that in this game, Danny made a very good case for himself to be a guy that could potentially steal that spot.
I am interested to see what comes of that. Danny Musovski has been someone who at times I have publicly doubted. And every time it seems, I mean, we had sat in the press box next to each other saying things that probably we would like to take back at this point. But the reality is he is scoring. Osaze was not able to convert outside of preseason. I still believe in Osaze. I still see it. He still has that big body, but Moose's hold-up play has been excellent. He's just continuing what he showed in the past, and being consistent as a striker is the one thing that you kind of need to do. So that's going to be interesting to see him this weekend. You said you wanted to talk about Paul Rothrock. Something that I noticed in this game, man, were they fouling him from the jump. They were fouling from the jump in Mexico. He was taking the blows. It seemed pretty clear that they knew he was an explosive player, similarly to how they were trying to get Nuhu sent off in both games. We'll talk about that later. Paul Rothrock, I don't think he had the best performance. He looked tired in this game to me. He looked like he needed a little bit of a rest. He went 3 games in a row playing. How are we feeling about Paul Rothrock? What do you think about his performance? And is that wing spot still in question?
It could still be in question, but I think that it's his job to lose still. And although I would agree that in this game, he went from very effective to not so much, I really do think that it was a lot of what you said. He did a lot of wear and tear. I mean, he had
Correct.
Diego Lainez and Angel Correa to worry about on his end. So he did a lot of running, a lot of defending, a lot of tracking back. And that needs to be highlighted. I mean, that dirty work sometimes is what you got to do when you play the wing position. I thought that he was, in the first half at least, relentless, winning headers, getting himself into positions. He didn't put the ball away, which is ultimately what we judge a lot of wingers and strikers and forwards on. But his tenacity is undeniable and extremely important. But in the second half, I would say after the 60th minute, you could tell that it was starting to wear on him. I mean, as much as Paul could probably tell you that he's Superman, he could play 490s, your body tells you something otherwise. So, it's like your mind is telling you yes, and your body's telling you no, the opposite of the song, but my body is telling me no. Yeah, that's exactly what he was feeling, because he wanted to go, he wanted to push, but he just couldn't.
You could you could see him trying to get there and to push, and it was one of those things that, like, your body it's that lactic acid, it'll kick your ass.
Yeah, and he was getting dispossessed, and I do think that as the game went along, and Tigres started to get deeper and deeper into their own half, and that bus started to back up to eventually park completely in front of the goal, there wasn't as much room for him to run on. And so I think that affected him in some sort of way. But I still think that it's his starting position to lose. And maybe almost ironically, the thing that almost makes me doubt a little bit or still have the conversation about him not being a starter is because he's also so good coming off the bench. Like, it's almost like a curse. It's a blessing and a curse, right? It's great to have a player like Paul that could just come in 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes and make a difference, because it's a trick to do. It's a trait. It's something that not every player has, and he has that. But it would be unfair because of his work rate, his productivity, and everything he's given you so far to sit him on the bench.
I am just so happy that the Sounders were able to sign him to a new contract, because what an absolute deal that is. I mean, he took a pay cut to stay here, and he is overperforming, in my opinion, already the contract that he has. There's a million MLS teams that would kill to have a player like that. There were championship teams that were in conversation with Paul. So, and that's a league that's, in some people's eyes, partially in my eyes, even more physical and ruthless than the MLS. So I think you have to be happy with Paul Rothrock's performance, even if, past the 60th, I saw it too. He was getting tired, but taking those knocks is a skill. It is something that you need a guy to do and get up and keep pushing. But let's talk about a guy.
He got hit-butted to the point where I thought he had a concussion. That was like Linus. I mean, he's not the most physical guy, but he just kind of put his head down, and because he's kind of short. I mean, Rothrock just took it in the face. I was surprised he got up right away and all of it. And I think that leads to the VAR check at some point for Albert Rusnak's goal. But man,
he stays down. I mean,
he was getting beat up.
He does a classic CONCACAF trick, which is you lay on the ground for as long as possible so that VAR will eventually call over the referee to check on the goal. So shout out to Paul Rothrock for that. That is some dark arts that we approve of because obviously it helped us. Let's talk about some dark arts that we don't approve of, which is Linus, as you mentioned, getting fouled. I'm air quoting here for the audio listeners by Nuhu when Nuhu gave him a little tap on the back. I saw this clip in places that it should not have been. Why is a 8:30 p.m. kickoff Concacaf Champions Cup match on every soccer page across the world, and everyone's calling Tigres disgusting and floppers, and this, we need to get this out of the game? I saw every soccer show talking about it, worldwide, universally in agreement that this is one of the saddest, lamest things of all time. For those who didn't see the clip, Mines was just basically tapped, jumps up in the air, rolls around, does the Neymar on the ground there, and was shocked that he didn't earn a foul there. So, Niko, I got to get your take on all of this. I'm pro dark arts at certain points, but something like this, it ruins the game for spectators. It ruins the. How am I supposed to defend this to my friends who watch American football? I can't defend that.
I mean, if they watch the NBA, maybe you might defend it. I mean,
people were comparing him to LeBron. People were comparing him to LeBron, but I don't even think the King would do something that bad.
No, that was bad. I mean, to be quite honest, I'm with you. Sometimes you got to sell a foul at the right time with the right angle, with the right force. But if you're whispering in my ear and I'm falling to the ground because I say you bit it off, that's pushing it, right? And this was very much like it. I mean, he might have just, poked him and he goes down like he got punched or shot, and there is no defending it. It's almost counterproductive to every extent, right? Because he's not going to get that call. VAR is not going to do any good. And other than maybe losing some time or gaining time for your team, you ain't doing nothing with it. So this is one of those situations where if we're going to uphold VAR, give this guy a yellow, right? The referee should be doing more to prevent what you would call outrageous or far-fetched moments in the field to be, you're already going to take time if somebody really hits me, if somebody really elbows me, or it looks like he elbowed me. But if we're going to allow this sort of thing, then it becomes a clown show. Then he feeds to the narrative of, oh, this is just soccer, a bunch of floppers, yada, yada, yada. Same thing that happens in the NBA. Oh, the new NBA is soft. What happened to the bad boys from Detroit? What happened to the Ron Artest, the Isaiah Thomases, the Reggie Millers, right? So feeding to the narrative is never good. So it's never going to stop unless you force it to stop. And that is on the referee. If I'm seeing that as a referee, and I see it on the monitor or somebody's telling me, yellow card immediately. Knock that shit off. Simple.
I think that goes for a lot of things, including what the Sounders were so aggrieved of with the amount of time wasting that happens. And I'm someone who believes that if it's a yellow card, it's always a yellow card. I don't care if you're on a yellow already. Send that guy off. That's the way that it should be. Time wasting wasn't something that was really taken seriously until the end of the game. There was maybe, I think, a single yellow or two yellows shown for time wasting. Linus should have had a yellow for this. I mean, that is simulation, easy, clear and simple. You have VAR for that reason. Your assistant referee also was standing right there. You're communicating with them consistently. The referee knows that it's he knows what's going on. And I think there were so many instances of that in this game that I am fine with you letting people play, but that is something that ruins the experience across the board for the players, for the fans, for the sport in general. You never want to be the guy who people online are saying, you have embarrassed this sport as a whole. So The Sounders do get their international prominence yet again, but maybe for a moment that they wish they could have seen a little bit of help from the referee. I'm super duper was disappointed with the officiating in this match, but what are you gonna do?
No, and it should have been like, I understand, and this goes back to the comments by the Sounders. I could appreciate it, and I think I asked it just like this to Christian. It's not an excuse, but it is a circumstance. And that circumstance is frustrating, right? Because if you have this mechanism that's supposed to alleviate and discourage teams from doing this sort of behavior, then you have to uphold those minutes to what they are. So the fact that it was anything less than 10 minutes was shocking to me. And it is almost negligent from the referee to act like he saw anything less, because I just don't know how you see 6 minutes. So it's frustrating. At the end of the day, CONCACAF, soccer in general, referees need to do better, because there is a fine line between savviness and dark arts to just plain clown show and just trying to do the least.
Yeah, I agree. I don't want to belabor the referee point, but I do have one more referee complaint. Let's just get them all out here. Everyone's feeling it. But there was a moment in this match where a lot of people feel as though there was a missed handball in the box going against Tigres. I can't remember exactly if they reviewed this at VAR or not. For some reason, I'm remembering that they did, but don't quote me on that. It looks very clearly like it hits the outstretched arm of a Tigres defender off of a shot. How do you feel about that? Or are you still in my camp, which is you concede a very lame set piece yet again, and you're not even in that moment of needing that extra goal if you don't concede that?
Yes, I do know that they checked it, and it wasn't like I don't know what you would call like a full-on VAR check where they stopped the game and they went to look at it. But he's on his earpiece the whole time, and he's trying to hold players. Everybody's coming to him. He's right here, hand on his ear. So it definitely was reviewed, and it looks like VAR didn't see enough to get the referee to go watch it, or maybe his first look on it, he didn't feel like it was, or that there wasn't enough evidence to overturn it into a handball. So I think that's what happened. Watching it firsthand, watching the game over again, I think it could go either way. And it's one of those calls where if the referee blows the whistle, then it's a thing. But if he doesn't blow the whistle, is there enough evidence to overturn that decision to not blow the whistle? I don't know if it was. There is a bit of a gray area between what is natural positioning. Not every defender puts hands in their back. And as much as that can sound unfair, and there is really a thin line in between one and the other, and almost a gray area, I think it goes back to the referee, depending on the call on the field. And when the call on the field is, I'm not making a call, then I don't have a problem with it.
Sounder at Heart has been around in one form or another since 2009. In 2026, though, we make a pretty significant evolution when we go analog. Yes, that's right, in the year of our Lord 2026, we are publishing a real-life magazine. We're calling this thing 4, as in Sounder at Heart 4.0, but we're stylizing it as IV because we absolutely love Roman numeral. And if you want to refer to it as IV, that's cool too. The first issue has a comic book style cover that was hand-drawn by local artist Kevin Newbern. Features by Tim Foss, Susie Rance, and Charlie Boehm, a statistical deep dive by Kat Bush, a Q&A with Brian Schmetzer, a column by G. Willow Wilson, and photographs by Noah Riffe, Max Aquino, Mike Russell, and Jane Dershowitz. I could not possibly be more proud of the work everyone put into making this, and I think you're going to absolutely love it. If you'd like to get your hands on one of these limited edition copies, we're currently selling them for $15 on our website. Get yours now. Nos Audietes, admittedly, is not exactly known for our spicy takes, but that doesn't mean we want our food to be mild. Spice up your life with Hacks and Ferments. Handcrafted in Georgetown and made with the best local ingredients from across the Pacific Northwest, they specialize in unique small batch fermented hot sauces and vinegars. Haxon Ferments brings bold flavors and natural fermentation together for something truly special. Whether you're a heat seeker or just looking to elevate your cooking, you'll find something you love at haxonferments.com. That's HAXANFERMENTS.com. And right now, if you use the code SOUNDERATHEART, that's all one word, at checkout, you will get a free hot sauce with your order. Again, go to haxonferments.com, use the code SOUNDERATHEART at checkout for a free hot sauce with your order. Haxon Ferments is a proud sponsor of the Sounder at Heart podcast network.
That is what it is. We move on. No more CONCACAF Champions Cup. We are back to regular MLS play. But before that, we got to witness 2 matches already played at Lumen Field with grass. It was some of the craziest weather I've ever experienced in my years of living here in Seattle. We had a literal tornado waterspout in the Puget Sound. There was hail, snow, sun, what I call East Coast rain, because that's not normal Seattle rain. That's a massive downpour, lightning, everything. I mean, wind, it was insane. You had the U.S. women's national team losing 1-0 to Japan on that game before this match was played. And during that whole day, that whole match, that whole night, that whole next day, it was raining. Sounders play. How did you feel like it held up personally? I was very shocked and surprised and thought it looked very good.
Yeah, no, look, it looked great firsthand. It looked great going down there, feeling the grass, but it played great. Like that's what I was looking for. The bounce of the ball, the trajectory of the passes. Was there or was there not going to be chunks of grass just falling off, right? And none of that was there. I mean, it held very firmly. I didn't see players slip or push through the grass. The unevenness of grass that isn't set for a very long time can have a real effect on how players run. So I was all over it. I mean, there was a point where I was with my phone just magnifying on players' cleats to see like residue of certain, like are they pushing too far deep? I'm way into it. So I was really trying to figure it out. And no, it looked good. I talked to the players after the game and everyone had nothing but great things to say about it. Is it European team level ready? I don't know, because I thought that in the Club World Cup the grass was okay and all the European teams just dogged it. So I don't know. But as far as me, the way I saw it and what I heard from the players, I thought it was very good surface.
I think this looks much better than what they put down for Club World Cup. And I also believe that this is a different method as well. There's a lot more material that the grass is sitting on top of. The way that they installed it, I believe, was different. I could be wrong, but it looks 10 times better. And there will be less back-to-back events being played on it. So it'll have a little bit more time to set and all of that. FIFA's not going to let bad grass play. That's just, I mean,
true.
That's kind of just the truth. I mean, if you go look through, they released the contract that Seattle signed with FIFA. I mean, there are like specifications down to the blades of grass basically on what they have to do. So they have this thing down to a science. It looked really good. I'm excited to see this team play a little bit more on grass. Made me a little jealous though. I've always been pro turf. I've always been like, I love the advantage at Lumen Field of having the turf. People don't know how to play on it. I was concerned before this game that, oh, the Sounders are going to lose their home field advantage, like not getting to play on that wet turf. That's like their superpower. But it seemed like it didn't matter. It seemed like this played much better, and this match was just as entertaining.
No, he played great, and he does benefit the entertainment of the game and better soccer played. I thought it was great. I'll tell you something that I didn't like that had nothing to do with pitch. The new seats installed with the big Seahawks.
You're gonna get me in trouble. You're gonna get me in trouble.
I
Niko.
mean, I got that. The dog with his leg up trying to pee on the area feel. That's what I got out of it. The Seahawks would not be denied when he came to World Cup. You could take away the name of the stadium, you could take what you want, but the logo, baby, is gonna live on.
Niko, you say that. That's
sorry.
Hilarious. I posted about that on the Everything app, and my tweet is sitting now at like 3 million views, thousands of replies. I basically got ratioed saying it's really cute that the Seahawks pretend like they own Lumen Field because, famously,
that'll do it.
So they were very upset at that. And I will say to the Seahawks fans, go Hawks. I'm a Hawks fan. You're not. So you're happy with all of this Hawks slander. But
I would go for, as long as they're not playing the uninfluential and unimportant Raiders, which is hard for me to say, but it's the reality. I'm good with the Hawks. I mean, they're the second team. They're the ones that I hope that they win, since we're not.
Yeah, and this is far from the Sounders, but you're welcome for ruining your franchise for 5 more years with giving you the worst quarterback of all time and getting, our seconds in head coaching. But we'll keep it moving here because I don't want to get canceled anymore by Seahawks
You're right.
fans. We
You're
love
right.
you. We
I
love the
apologize for
Seahawks.
that.
First and goal is amazing. No problem with the Hawks Nest seats, even though they would not be there without FIFA demanding them. So just remember, you owe it all to soccer. Let's look ahead here to this weekend. The Seattle Sounders are facing off against St. Louis City FC, who currently sit in 14th place. That's right, 1 place above last place Sporting Kansas City on 6 points, 1 win, 3 draws, 3 losses. St. Louis just played in the U.S. Open Cup midweek against FC Tulsa. They advanced in the competition, 4-0 win on the road with Roman Berkey, designated team goalkeeper, logging an assist in that game. How do we expect the Sounders to line up for this weekend? Let's just start there, Niko.
Yeah, so what I learned this week is that there's going to be a lot of rotation. Looking at, and I think we all expected that. But I mean, there's some that we might have predicted, like Tino Lopez. I think that he's going to be one of those guys that's in without a doubt. But I think Hassani Dotson has a really good chance to start in this game. And whether that is with Burnell playing is either as a pocket winger, or maybe you go straight up with that 3-4-2-1, where you got him playing on the inside pocket still, and the width is given directly by the wing backs. I think those are a couple of the changes that I think we might see. Hassani, he had a really hard time trying to get cleared from that concussion protocol. He's gotten some minutes, but I think he is due for a start. And what I mean by due is that a lot of these players in this rotation, which the Sounders have done an excellent job at having like 18-player rotation, you got to figure out what you have in Hassani. And I think that this is the time to do it. Hassani looked very good all training, physical, good on the ball, good delivery. He looks motivated. He looks like somebody that knows that Snyder Brunell is in some way just beating you out of the job, for lack of a better phrase or word. I think he knows that. And so trying to see how he performs in this game is going to be interesting. I like the vibes. Christian talked about the importance of having this quick turnaround and grabbing some of the positives from this Wednesday game and taking it to the start of the MLS season. So in my opinion, I think we're going to see a very motivated, strong, cemented unit against St. Louis City, who is a a team that I like what they're doing in terms of their concepts and their desire to play out of the back, their possession system, a lot of their passing patterns, even some of their players I really do like. But in terms of the Sounders, I think that we'll see something along the lines of course, Andrew Thomas back at goal. I think we'll see Alex Roldan back at right back. I think we'll see Tino and Jackson and Nuhu on the left side. I think we're going to see Hassani and Christian Roldan. And I think that we are going to see Snyder there as a pocket winger on the right with Albert Rusnak. And this is the one that I think we got to focus on. Danny Musovski starting this game. So it's going to be interesting how it plays out. I think Danny knows that this is his time to shine and how that's going to work out. But that's kind of what I see it. The biggest ones is Danny starting at the 9, Hassani Dotson getting a shot, and potentially Alex Roldan being back on the right back position.
Looking at St. Louis City FC, obviously they lost their number 9 to the LA Galaxy in the offseason in a cash for, I believe. What and who should we be focused on as Sounders fans against St. Louis City?
It's a good question. For me, anytime that this St. Louis team is on the front foot and they have a good game, there's only a couple of players that I like to look at. Hardo, and I always kill his name because I do terrible with the German and European names. But he's their X factor. He's the one player in their team that can do it all, whether it's through set pieces, whether it's on the ball, whether it's putting through balls. I think he's the guy to look at when it comes to St. Louis City. They are a possession-based team, but I think they press very well, and I think that they like to be selective on way they press. So whether it's Batcher or Toucher, up at the 9, they have tried both at the same time, but I think those guys do a very good job at both being energizer bunnies, Paul Rothrock types, if you will, right? They're going to be work rate guys more than technical. But I think their biggest issue right now has been defensively. I want to say Orozco is hurt for this particular game. So I think in the back line, they have some difficulties. But in terms of their best players and the players to look at, I think Hardo is the one guy that you cannot allow him to take over a game.
Well, we will be interested to see that. Let's check in on some injuries here, because I want to know if you have any of those deep insider information. Obviously, Petkovic, he is now on the season-ending injury list. That will open up a U22 spot. It does seem like Brian Schmetzer is keen on keeping him, though, from what he'd seen. You weren't so high on the guy, but Brian Schmetzer seems to be, and they are seemingly looking to try and get a deal on him since, again, he is out and is going to have a knee injury, which is a bit of a problem for a young player. Yamar also out. Stu Hawkins seemingly coming back. Are we going to see him in the rotation? I'm going to just pass the baton off to you. How are our injuries looking? Do we have any updates from training?
Yeah, great question, because I forgot completely about it. Kim Keehee and Ryan Saylor were both full at training. Stu Hawkins as well, full at training. I only expect Kim Keehee to be a potential player that can get on the field if you need to. I think he's ahead of the other two guys so far, or he has been more part of training consistently. So I think he's the guy. There's no news on Yamar and Pedro de la Vega per Brian Schmetzer. He said that he's hoping to get Yamar back before World Cup. But when it came to Pedro, he just...
Oh, no, Yamar before, or...
Yeah. But when it came to Pedro, he just put it way out there. I think that it's going to be past that. He didn't really commit on a timeline for Pedro de la Vega But when it comes to those guys that could potentially come in, I think Stu Hawkins and Kim Ki-hee are the most relevant. I think Kim Ki-hee is the one that is more ready to go if you needed to make a change in the back line.
It is good to know that the back line is getting some reinforcements, considering we have seen obviously Alex take up that mantle at center back, and the only person behind him was Tino Lopez, who has done a phenomenal job. And I think if you look at this depth chart right now, will sit above Kim Ki-hee, in my opinion. But who's to say? Who's to say?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But when it comes to St. Louis, I will say this. They are 14th in the Western Conference in the standings, but they feel like they play a little better than that. I really do. Mm-hmm. I like what they're trying to do with the ball. I like to do what they possess. Cordova is a guy that I've been high on since he very first came into the league, but he has been a disappointment. I honestly feel like this is my opinion, I feel like this team plays better without Cordova up top. But there are some things that I think could influence this game. And I think we all know what it is. Set pieces. This St. Louis team is going to want to change the game in set pieces. And the Sounders have given up some pretty easy goals on set pieces. There's a lot of physical players that can go up and beat you on some set pieces, whether it's corner kicks or set pieces with crosses into the box. So Seattle's going to have to be very adamant about not allowing guys to get behind them, deciding the difficulties of whether you're manning or you're zoning, being strong with your marker, not allowing them to get through you. We saw what happened with Jordan Morris. Those kind of things cannot happen in this particular game, because if you do allow St. Louis City to get up early on a goal, they are not afraid to lock it down and make it very difficult to break them in a deep block.
The Sounders are sitting in fifth right now. They are tied on points with Real Salt Lake. It seems as though it's not out of the question that they could technically push for the Shield. The Whitecaps are leading that Shield race on 18 points. The Sounders have a game in hand on the Whitecaps. The Sounders now have a run of home games against opponents that, you know, I wouldn't say they can't beat. St. Louis City is definitely a beatable team. They'll play FC Dallas. They will go on the road to Sporting Kansas City, but then they also host San Diego, San Jose, which is the big test, and LA Galaxy. How are we looking? How are you feeling about the prospects of the Shield, which was one thing that Brian Schmetzer and Paul Rothrock both noted at the beginning of the season as something the players were interested in pushing for?
Look, I'm not a Shield guy. I've never been. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I am. To me, and only me, it feels like a consolation prize, although I know it's not, because it comes with a spot to, I believe, Concacaf Champions League, and there is a level
and home game
of
advantage in the playoffs, which
home
I
field
think
advantage,
really,
of course. Yeah, that's part of it, but it means nothing if you don't win that. To me, right? Home field advantage don't mean diddly if you don't win it, right? So that's what I mean. At times, and most times at that, if we go back to the history of the Shield, it does feel like a consolation prize, because that team doesn't always go out to win MLS Cup. However, I like the mentality. I love the mentality by the team of saying, we're going for it. We're going to win it all. I hear that all the time, right? From fans. Why don't we win it all? Why don't we go? I think that the depth of the team has shown up. The fact that this team can be competitive in every game. The defense has given you a platform to do that and be able to bring in players and then switch them around and have a solid and very high floor. So to me, it's more about the mentality. Whether they go out to do it, I think it's difficult. I think that the LAFCs, I think that the Vancouvers, those teams are built a little more for that sort of thing. But look, the Sounders have surprised even me so far this season, because I've always, from the very beginning of the season, I said the first 6 months all the way to the summer window is going to be more of an assessment. There's going to be a checkpoint, and then you're going to have to figure out the players you do bring in. Because if there's a guarantee, is that LAFC is bringing some guys, and that Vancouver and San Diego for sure is bringing some guys. So, how do you raise your ceiling as a Sounders is still to be seen. But because they have surprised me and they have done phenomenal, better than I think either you or I could ever think of, away from Lumen in with this many games on the road,
which
I think that they have every chance to do it. Yeah,
MLS
they have every chance to do it.
MLS is by far, statistically speaking, the hardest league in variance to play away. So you are way more likely to lose away than any other league in the entire world. That's how hard it is to win on the road. The Sounders just played a lot of their road games. They are now front loaded with home games. And I mean, you have to look at that and be encouraged, if not to win the Shield, to get what they truthfully needed in the last few MLS Cup runs, which was home field advantage. I mean, you look at that LA Galaxy game a couple of years ago where, Ricky Puig tears his ACL, keeps pushing, they score that game winner. You gotta kind of wish, you're like, man, if we had that at home, could that have changed the calculus? So every opportunity to get a little bit more advantage, I think is very important for this club when it comes to MLS Cup. I'm quite impressed with the start. The Sounders are not historically a impressive start team. So the fact that they're high in the power rankings, they're high in the general table, this is quite an interesting start. So I'm interested to see how this goes. Concacaf Champions Cup, okay, done and dusted. Keep it pushing. That gives you a lot more breathing room. You're going to be fighting against a team like LAFC, correct? But they are also fighting for Concacaf Champions Cup. And that is going to be a brutal battle. They're playing America, correct? So have fun with that is what I will say. Have fun with that.
I mean, I do like the Final Four. I mean, I wish that the Sounders would have, been there and giving themselves a chance. But look, Nashville has been impressive. I've been high on Nashville since BJ Callahan first came in. I've been a big BJ Callahan. He's not just a motivator, but he seems to be a guy that can quickly implement his curriculum or his soccer module. And look, I thought they were going to be Inter Miami last season, and it's not just because I'm an Inter Miami hater, but I really did think that Nashville was going to beat them last season in the playoffs, but they didn't do that. But this year, they've been unreal, and they got the first win, like you mentioned, at Azteca. I mean, it's a very good team. I do, though, believe that we're getting an early final in LAFC and Toluca. I think that the winner out of that game, to me,
Toluca. I'm sorry, not America. My bad.
Yeah, Toluca. Yeah, Toluca and LAFC. The winner out of that matchup is going to go on to win this tournament, in my opinion. So that's your early final. What happens the end of the day with Nashville and Tigres, it'll be whatever. It doesn't matter who wins. Yeah. They're going to lose in the final, in my opinion, because the better squads are on the other side.
Listen, I have been saying that I foresee a Nashville in the final. I think that they're a good team. And I also just think it would be really funny for Reed Baker Whiting to win 2 CONCACAF Champions Cups. That would be a good little moment for him right there. Well, let's keep it pushing here with our final story. There's been some drama, as happens from time to time, but this time the Mexican Soccer Federation and the Seattle Sounders are beefing? ? Is it one-sided? Apparently, Brian Schmetzer doesn't know what's going on. What is going on in the world of international football? Obed Vargas has brought a lot of conversation towards this club. You can read Jeremiah Oshan's incredible reporting on how the transfer almost blew up because of Obed's agent and other things that happened in that. This has just been constant content, but recently, in an interview with Record, Andres Lini claimed that the Sounders hid Mexico's call-ups from Obed Vargas. This is the exact quote from him. I had just arrived. I sent Obed a call-up to the Sounders. This is translated, by the way, I want to say, so grain of salt on this. I sent Obed a call-up to the Sounders, but the Sounders never notified the boy. Obed made his professional debut against Pumas in the final that the Sounders beat me. And that's when I identified him. I called him up again to the youth national teams, and the Sounders told me the player wasn't going to come. They denied me the call up. At that moment, I decided to go with the player to try and find out why he didn't want to come, what he felt. Lelini claims that he had to fly out to Alaska to meet with Obed's parents and Obed to get him to know that Mexico was interested in him coming up for caps. Now, who is this mystery man? Well, he is the director of youth teams for the Mexican national team, a management position that is in charge of coordinating all of the representative youth teams of Mexico. So, your U21s, your U18s, all of that kind of stuff. This has been something that the Sounders, I am positive, know that it's been claimed. But it seems, Niko, like we haven't really gotten a straight answer from them. We also feel as though maybe there's a little embellishment happening or mixing up happening with this whole situation. I'm going to hand the baton to you. It's a hot potato, but good luck.
So let's start by adding a couple of things. Look, there's a lot of this story when it comes to Lelini's allegations against the Sounders that sound very far-fetched. And let me start by laying those out. Anyone who watches this show and anyone who is familiar with MLS and the Sounders knows that the U.S. Soccer Federation and most MLS teams don't always or almost never see eye to eye. The Sounders are no exception. They've had their quarrels with U.S. Soccer.
Famously, so for Jackson Reagan, Seattle Sounders center back, was asked to come to a camp. The Sounders said, can we have 2 extra days with him? And they said, absolutely not. And they basically never came to an agreement. They've had beef when they did not let Jordan go to the Olympics. These are the things that I would say U.S. Soccer and the Sounders have a fraught relationship, if anything.
And in all those cases, the agents and the players involved in those controversial conversations and debates with U.S. Soccer have been told, have been mentioned. They all were part of those talks. So there was nothing hidden. But the idea that the Sounders will go out of their way to shield in some sort of way any call-ups by Mexico to benefit the U.S. Soccer Federation makes no sense. There is literally zero that the Sounders are getting from that sort of situation. I mean, there's nothing. Even when it comes to having a player an extra game, if that's what you want to think of, the Sounders have always been a player-first organization. There have been moments like the Jackson Reagan thing where conversations happen and the Federation just says, no, this is the way it's going to happen because they are the Federation. And then things go out of whack and it affects the player. But
and
always
to be clear,
the
I have to note with the Jackson Reagan situation too, the Federation made exemptions for other players, but refused
exactly
the same exemption for Jackson Reagan. So it was a situation that is different than we're set in stone and there's gridlock. There was things to point to that made the situation a bit insane.
Totally. So number 2, are we to believe that the U.S. Soccer Federation has a hard time and can only go by contacting Obed Vargas through the club when you or I, or I don't know, any journalist starting off might even slide on the DMs and try to talk to a player through there, an agent, a family member? I mean, come on. Are we to believe that that's what it took you to fly to Alaska when the Sounders, as far as I know, Obed Vargas and his family have lived in Seattle their whole time, but they flew to Alaska to talk to Obed Vargas because that was the only way that you could contact the player about making the switch from the U.S. Federation to the Mexico Federation? It seems far-fetched to me. I don't know about you guys. I'm just laying it out here. But the reality is this, and what I've been able to find out is this, and we need to clarify a couple of things. Per sources, Andres Lillini is looking to move up in the world and go from the youth development guy for the Mexican Federation into a club, specifically Tigres as a club. There is a vacancy that Culebro left to be the president of soccer for Atlanta United. And so that vacancy opens room for, not for the same position, but it opens room in the structure of the roles of that front office for someone to go in. And I was able to confirm that during the game against Tigres, that Andres Lillini is without a doubt a candidate for that position. So if I am trying to market myself because I want to move on in the world of soccer, what better way than to come up with this elaborate story about how I always knew that the guy who is now at Atletico de Madrid was a talent, and the only reason why me doing my job, it took so long to move him or to talk to him, to switch him from the U.S. Soccer Federation to Mexico, was because the Sounders had this evil plan to block conversations, reject call-ups, and be subjective to a fine and scrutiny and everything that comes with the possibilities of a club getting between a national team and a player. So is it funny? Is it coincidental? Is it just convenient that this is the timeline of things for Lillini to bring up all of these things? I don't think so. And that's why I reported on it, because it is clear that this guy is doing a whole lot of talking to market himself as this phenom, as this brilliant guy, because he's looking for the next job. But the clarification here that I did want to have is that I understand that the next guy involved when it comes to that specific role that Culebro's leaving is Carlos Emilio Gonzalez. He will take over for that specific role on June 1st. But that opening, that vacancy, I pointed to a vacancy with Tigres that Lillini is going for, is for another job, but is within the exact same administration, the same front office. So take it for what you will. Those are just the facts. I'm not sitting here telling you that I know for sure that that's what motivated this agenda for Andres Lillini to say all these things. And don't feel too bad that it's only targeted towards the Sounders. He also tried to basically say that Brian Gutierrez wasn't quite telling the truth about when he was switched over for the Mexican team. So all of this, all you should know is that he's doing a whole lot of me, look what I can do type of situation where, in my opinion, he's being very negligent and loosey-goosey with his statements. And I'll finish on this. As I said in my very first post, I don't speak for the club. This is the information that I gotten. And I do believe that the Sounders should put out a statement denying those allegations, and I would even go over and figure out if there's any sort of legal action for what I believe to be inflammatory statements from Lillini.
I will say, as someone who does know a thing or two about slander and libel law, it's very unlikely that the Sounders would ever win anything like that. What they would try to be doing is getting a settlement. I don't think that makes any sense in terms of legally speaking. You're going to be spending a lot more money to just libel law in America is impossible. You have to prove the impossible. You have to prove physical harm as well. There's multiple markers of things that you have to hit to actually be able to win a case like that. 90% of the time, someone's just trying to get to a settlement. And a lot of times that settlement will just be an apology. And I don't think that makes any sense for the Sounders to do that. You don't really want to get involved in legal litigation with anyone in the soccer world. You just don't want to stain your reputation, period. I am interested to hear, Brian Spencer, you did ask him about this. He did answer the question. What was his response?
He, in very strategic way, and I know that it might not sound like that by maybe his delivery when I asked the question, but the idea was to keep the focus on the game at hand. And that is a very logical thing to do, right? They don't want to feed into the narrative, it seems. They don't want to entertain that idea. As of right now, at least, that could change. But Brian basically focused on the way the team handles call-ups for guys like Raul Ruidiaz and Clint Dempsey and all of these started players that have been part of this team. And if they, obviously, he indicated basically that if he allowed all these players to go and play for whoever they wanted to play for, why would this be any different? So without necessarily denying those claims, he basically put an example of how the club handles those situations. And I felt like that was fair. Now, his delivery wasn't necessarily the best, but in that particular moment, the phrasing wasn't necessarily there, because I have a really hard time knowing how good the Sounders public relation team is, that he wasn't briefed on it, that he didn't know about the allegations, because he kind of talks to me, and I don't know, sometimes he'll banter with me. So maybe he tried to make it seem like he had no idea what was going on, but I have a really hard time believing that he didn't know that this were some serious allegations. But I think that the idea was just to not fuel something that doesn't need to be fueled, and he went around it. So yeah, I have no doubt that the Sounders PR team had him briefed of what was going on, and that's the angle that decided to go with.
Yeah, I do think it is an interesting conversation to be had, because it is it's something that's fiery. You touch it, you can get burned, because it is a he said, she said situation. People are going to believe whatever they want to believe. He's making his claim there on a podcast. People who have priors about Major League Soccer in general, especially a lot of, Mexico fans, they don't necessarily like MLS. So I think people are going to feel the way that they feel. It is the drama, the news, the classic, the tabloid style situation. You're pulling a quote from a longer form interview or podcast and making it a good big deal. Listen, I do the same thing for Lobbing Scorchers, but that's just the way the world works. And I am interested to see what comes of it. But frankly, I do feel like nothing's going to happen, and this will just die off.
No, and let me just end by saying, all of the information that I have gathered, everything that I know about the way the Sounders operate in 15 years of covering this team, would lead me to believe that those claims are bullshit. I don't speak for the club, but that is what I know for the information that I have on this team. They actually would hinder themselves by doing anything like this, because
people that got called up, I think last year or 2 years ago, there was 8 or 9 players got called up, and all of them were gone. Every single one.
When you're an organization that has put so much into your development system and your academy, and there is this huge level of investment, you want to make that your baby. You want to make sure that there's nothing but positives coming out of it, and nothing comes out better than you having these younger players in different youth national teams, right? So I know that Henry Browner, Wade Weber, Craig Weibel, Sean Henderson, all these guys, if they're doing anything on a daily basis, is making sure that that academy is pumping talent, and that all those guys that they're bringing in, that they're comfortable, that they are getting the best chances they can, so they can build, grow, develop in every single way. So it's laughable to me that these allegations are out there, but we'll see what comes of it. We'll see if the team, it maybe is a fair stance. I mean, I don't know. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I guess it could be a fair stance to say, I'm not even going to entertain it. Silence is also a response. But we'll see what they decide.
We will also see how unemployed Lenny is in the next few months as well. So we will see if any more inflammatory statements about the Seattle Sounders. It is good to be the boogeyman a little bit sometimes, though, Niko. It does feel good that this club is important enough to have a guy think that he can leverage our name to get a big time job. But that will do it for this week of what we learned with Niko Moreno. I am Noah Riffe. I host Lobbing Scorchers. For those who don't know, you can check us out anywhere. Jeremiah will be back for his regularly scheduled programs next week. But if you do want to hear anything I do, you can check out the Lobbing Scorchers. Niko is with Pulso Sports, Sounder at Heart. He's also Monday mornings, Lobbing Scorchers kickoff with Ari Lillienwall. Anything else you want to share before we go?
Nope. That's it. Thursdays with Soccer Down Here with John Nelson. Check that out as well. Always a good time. But that's it. Then check out the Pulso Sports. We have all of the interviews. You don't want to miss that. Danny Musovsky does
the Danny Musovsky one is really good. You guys should go.
Scorchers,
go
baby.
That. It's so good. Well, we will see you all soon, and thank you for listening. Bye.
Let's go Sounders. Yeah.